Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jennifer Schaus, and we're coming to you live today from Washington, D.C. Happy New Year to everybody who has joined us today. And we are kicking off 2022 with a new webinar series. It's a complimentary series, and it's our GIP program. It's the Government Industry Partners. And this webinar series is designed for companies who are trying to reach government contractors. Content can be anything related to wealth management, which is what we're covering today, and any other topics that are suitable for government contractors. So let me just tell you a little bit about the program, and then we'll dig into today's program, which is going to be a three-part series. So with this webinar series, companies can reach federal contractors by either doing 1, 2, or 3 webinars. They typically run about 30 minutes. We'll promote it through our newsletter, which reaches over 23,000 subscribers. We're going to host it, obviously, on our GoToWebinar platform, and we'll record the webinar. It gets uploaded to our YouTube channel, and the PowerPoint will go onto our slideshare.net site. Again, those are all, once everything is recorded, everything will be available, complimentary access. If you want information and pricing on this, just send an email over to us at hello@jenniferschaus.com. Some statistics here. So once your webinar has been put on and is recorded on our YouTube channel, we've got, I believe that some of these numbers have changed and have gone up. I think we're up to about 38,000 subscribers there. I think we're up to 3.7 million impressions. And then you see the top 4 videos have thousands of downloads. And some decent numbers there on click-through rate. So again, if you want pricing and information on this program, send us an email. We're happy to provide our media kit, which will give you those details. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to hand everything over here to Joe Cope of Cope Corrales and GovCon Wealth. And Joe, great to have you with us today. I'll just wait for your cue to tell me next slide.
Perfect. Jennifer, thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to be presenting here in the new year and over the next 3 weeks. We're here to discuss some fundamental things that are important to government contractors, their wealth, paying less taxes, and helping to build enterprise value in their firms. As you introduced, I'm Joe Cope, co-founder and managing partner of Cope Corrales and our GovCon division, GovCon Wealth. We are a family office, wealth management, and business consulting firm here located at Farragut Square, DC, though I am working from home per usual these days. Yeah, today we're beginning this 3-week series, and well, I guess what I'd like to say is we know that doing business with the government is challenging. I mean, it requires a lot of compliance and a lot of persistence, but it is doing a service to us, I believe, all as citizens of this great country in helping to make the government run more efficiently, to improve our lives, to improve our protection and our services. It also can be profitable. And so those are 2 really good things. And it's a reason that we've gravitated as a firm to working with GovCons, working closely with entrepreneurs, closely with executives. And it is something that we're passionate about. Let's go to the next slide, Jennifer. So graciously, we're going to get to spend 3 weeks together. Today, we're going to be talking and drilling down a little bit more in specific wealth and tax strategies for GovCons. I'll be leading that today. Next week, you're going to hear from my business partner, Luis Corrales, that is the Corrales and the Cope Corrales, talking a bit more directed toward those who either own government contracting firms or would like to start them, or maybe are part of an executive team that's growing, specifically on strategies of how to build a sellable government contracting firm. Right, there are things that you want to look at, you want to dive into, certain places that you want to invest, be it in key employees or executive team and accounting and different types of systems. And so he'll walk you through those specific value drivers inside your GovCon that you really want to know about. And then lastly, in week 3, we'll be discussing a more advanced M&A strategy. These are strategies that you're probably less than 5 years, but probably less than 3 years from an exit. What do we need to do right now, and what do you need to be thinking about to bring your company to market? As a previous webinar Jennifer put on, and many will tell you, the market is frothy, it is hot right now in the M&A space. Money is flowing from private equity in a lot of different places, strategic buyers. And so it is prudent that you get up to date and know what is happening in the M&A market and how to take advantage of that. Next slide. Today, we're going to drill down on what we see a lot for clients and what we experience. And so generally speaking, when clients come to us or someone who's interested in engaging, what we've usually found, and maybe this is you, is that clients take a junk drawer approach to their finances. And we all have that drawer at home where we know where we gather things. And so this is typically the case for people who are really busy, who are entrepreneurial, who are just in some ways don't like, certainly not the aptitude, but it just may be the time, organization. And over time, they've accumulated financial accounts, be they retirement plans, investment accounts, estate documents, insurance policies, real estate, mortgages, and oftentimes not just accounts, but they've accumulated advisors. Maybe they talked to an insurance guy 10 years ago when their kids were born and they have some basic term life plans. Maybe the beneficiaries haven't been updated. Maybe the kids haven't been updated. Maybe there was a broker in the past that they worked with to kind of build a portfolio, but it's been fairly set it and forget it. Not a lot of phone calls, not a lot of work. There may be estate documents that were created, maybe wills, basic revocable trusts. I think we just talked to a client last night that said, yeah, we set up a will before our kids were born and now they're going to college, and they simply haven't been reviewed. And so this junk drawer approach, this kind of aggregation of finances, really leads to some negative consequences. And a lot of times that results in paying unnecessary fees, right? There's a lot of cost built into these things, especially to, looking at mortgages that should have been refinanced, or retirement plans that have been from former employers that maybe when they left the employer, they actually sent it to an IRA, but they didn't just keep it invested. Maybe it's been in a money market account and really earning nothing, right? So it kind of lost opportunities, but also paying a good deal of unnecessary fees. There's also a lack of coordination that occurs where people simply aren't talking to each other. So the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. And in fact, there may be strategies that are competing against one another. Oftentimes when we look at taxation, this is true. They have this personal CPA, they have a corporate CPA that don't talk to each other. They don't know what they're doing, or will have an audit firm. And as we look back on these tax returns, which we ask for and we review as part of our engagements, there have been tens of thousands of dollars is oftentimes what we find, can be hundreds, and we'll maybe give you some examples of that, of excessive tax paid, unnecessary taxes that are just a result of that, quite frankly, sometimes we find, CPA firms are great, but they're kind of acting more as, compliance officers for the IRS as opposed to being proactive. And so part of having kind of things everywhere is that someone is not taking responsibility to coordinate it all together. And usually the person who's responsible is you, which is very challenging. And then lastly, we just find the junk drawer approach is just stressful, right? It kind of leads to a head in the sand, ostrich moment, and it does actually create stress on the primary breadwinners, sometimes the spouses. They just don't know, and so as a result, there's stress. Even if you have plenty of money, even if the resources are there, it's still stressful, and I think deep down we all know it shouldn't be that way. What is the solution? We'll go to the next slide. The solution is what we call a family office experience. And this is obviously what our firm tries to deliver, but regardless of an advisor, whether that's us or somebody else, this is what we really suggest that you look for, is that you look for a firm that creates coordinated financial advice. Now, it's easy to say this, but I think we all know the key is in the doing. So one of the things that you'll want to look for when thinking through wealth and thinking through tax and all these is, our advisors working, number one, in a team environment. It is very difficult for any firm or any one particular advisor to do all this work. And so they must have a team that's built around them to be able to actually coordinate all the stuff that needs to happen. Number two is going to be proficiencies. Is the firm you're working with, are they proficient in each one of these areas? Do they have knowledge, and have they demonstratable knowledge in each of these, in the tax, estate, wealth, business strategy? Can you actually speak to it intelligently and actually coordinate the advice? And that's what's really important, is that the family office takes a multiple discipline approach. It is not silent, right? A lot of firms and major brands that you know will kind of hold themselves out as maybe a family office or financial planners, but in reality, they're kind of focused on maybe it's just insurance, or maybe it's just the wealth management side and public securities. And really, that's the breadth and the depth of the relationship. And so what I really encourage you to do is to look for firms that have multiple disciplines. That doesn't mean necessarily having an attorney on staff where documents are drafted, but having the cogency to be able to navigate those conversations. And here's the important part, is to do the work, right? I can't tell you in this bullet point here under multidiscipline how many unfunded trusts that we come across. And it is not the fault of any of our clients, but trusts, what typically happens is they're told to go meet an estate attorney. And the estate attorney does good work. They set up their trust, they set up a revocable trust, typically just a revocable. But in order for that revocable trust to be worth its salt, other assets need to be titled in the revocable trust's name. And invariably what we find is that work is left on your plate and on our client's plate. And it's too much. It just is how busy it is. Now they can get funded, but usually they're not. The beneficiaries aren't updated in this. And that's a big miss. It's a big risk inside of an estate plan, is unfunded trust, because without an unfunded trust really has very little value. So our work is to say, hey, look, not only do we need to have the right trust set up in the right language, but we're going to do all the work to make sure that everything is done, that it's pushed forward, that it's funded, that it's structured properly. Same thing can be true about missed tax filings and deductions. Again, this is very simple. This is conducting an audit, which we do every day of tax returns, both on the corporate and personal side, really combing through, and we'll talk about these later, just some really good opportunities and missed tax opportunities. Again, it can be a few thousand, tens of thousands. We've seen hundreds, if not actually in the millions of missed tax opportunities. Again, not promised, not guaranteed, but it's oftentimes what we find. But we want to take a fine-tooth comb and say, okay, what could we have done, and maybe what has been missed. And then lastly is old retirement accounts, brokerage accounts. You know that story probably pretty well. You know, there are accounts kind of strewn around the road, and they're not coordinated. There's no consistent financial strategy, and simply put, it's unnecessary fees, and it's lost wealth over time. Family offices also offer economies of scale. You've kind of heard it levied, and when we go out to do RFPs with individuals who have sold their government contracting firms and have had a nice windfall, you've heard it levied that family offices are expensive, and while they're certainly not going to be the cheapest option, there are substantial economies of scale that are available when combining some of these services, when bringing some of these disciplines together. We'll oftentimes offer credit for individuals who have sold their companies, have windfalls toward tax returns or estate planning, documentation preparation. And certainly there are arrangements that we've worked out. We're really trying to align our interests with our clients and remain fee conscious. And I guess if you just skip to the last part, that's because we're fiduciaries, and what you really want to look for is a fiduciary. A fiduciary is someone who has fee-based advice and acts only in your best interest. And this is extremely important. Myself and Luis, we've had experience in the past working with firms where we're not permitted to be fiduciaries. The firm itself was, but that actually creates conflicts of interest. And in this case, being a fiduciary simply means anything that we think is in your best interest, we're going to tell you. Anything that we do for ourselves from a planning capacity, we're going to share with you. That's both investment, tax, anything that we do, it's all out on the table, and we are rowing in the same direction. So if we think about fees, we want to keep them low because we want to grow your wealth, right? We have incentive to do so, and to make sure that we build that multifamily and that generational type wealth. And we have relationships that last the next 20, 30, 40 years. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. Shifting a little bit, again, the family office experience works really well for individuals, entrepreneurs, executives, but where where we get kind of an interesting on the tax side and on the how to create wealth side is really within entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship, we know, is incredibly, takes an enormous amount of work. We run a company, we have employees, we know what that's like and what that takes. It's something that we'd love to do, but we know it takes 30 to 40% of time is running a business. But it is fun, and it is rewarding. Generally, when we meet clients who are running companies, they typically fall into two buckets. The first is they're building what's called a lifestyle company. And in lifestyle companies, cash flow is king. That building the company and its enterprise value is typically second to building the personal net worth of the owner. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with this. This is lots of companies that run this way, and it can be great. And you can build a personal net worth of, $5 million, $10 million, $15, $20 million by doing this. And it's quite simply is that the majority of the money that is made, all the profits, are distributed out of the company to build a personal balance sheet, right? And ultimately, the focus here is on that slow organic growth and creating stable cash flows. So it may not be going after new contracts, it may not be or aggressively going after new contracts or aggressively hiring and building out management teams. It may be just kind of, slowly chipping away up your next code, kind of getting to those next levels gradually and earning a really good living and saving, and this is important, saving like there may not be a liquidity event in the future. And that is a prudent way to plan. In this kind of lifestyle, there is less risk, right? Because you're kind of building organically, but there's also probably less reward. There hasn't been as much focus on, hey, are we going to sell this thing in the future, right? What do we need to do? And this is the important mindset that we find and we really help our clients think through. And as you begin to think and talk to your advisors is, okay, who are we going to be when we grow, right? We have a mature company, but are we going to stay small? Are we kind of getting to that ceiling? Are we comfortable in the small, or are we going to start looking for, our sole source IDIQs? Are we going to start looking for full and open, some SIPR strategies, and some different JV agreements and different partnerships, right? Like, how are we going to do this to potentially make a transition, right? This is a lifestyle, is a longer path to retirement. It takes more, time to save more money each year. And again, we can build some great lives within lifestyle companies. Where we enjoy kind of building and kind of helping to start to think strategic around is moving toward enterprise value. An enterprise company value is designed to and optimized to be sold. We're focusing on growth, reinvesting profits through possible acquisitions. It is a shorter path building towards your exit, and it certainly has more risk, but generally speaking, it has more rewards. Now, what's interesting is we have lots of conversations, and one we just had yesterday was with an entrepreneur, and it was an interesting statement. He said, hey, look, I've run this thing like there never was an exit. I have saved as if it's a lifestyle, and now there is a possible exit. And I think that's a great mentality. And certainly it can work out that way. But we also do want to be intentional in building toward that enterprise value. And that's what the next following 2 weeks we'll discuss a little bit more detail. Let's go to the next slide. Now, as part of a family office, as part of the lifestyle side of the company, and ultimately if you sell, we are going to want to invest and we are going to want to manage wealth. And it's very important as fiduciaries that we cover two distinct areas of wealth management. The first is building your personal net worth, and we do that through what our firm calls our core investing, and that's investing in public markets. Public markets are stocks, bonds, exchange-traded funds, alternatives, commodities, different styles and different vehicles, but usually they're publicly traded. And as a fiduciary, we have no proprietary investments. We simply want to use whatever is best and quite frankly, the lowest cost that will produce the best returns, right? That's always what we're focused on. We generally want to avoid mutual funds. They have high cost, they have poor tax efficiency. Rarely do we find them, but they exist. Again, always looking at that balance between a cost, but the tax efficiency is embedded capital gains and some unrealized stuff that's not very pleasant. We love looking at municipal bonds and tax advantage type returns. if we can find those, we want to reduce tax burden. Where our firm is unique and where fiduciaries and family offices are unique is that we do believe in non-public investments, or called private placements. And these are anything to do with venture capital, private equity, real estate, or low risk assets. And these are different opportunities. They can come in the form of a fund. So it could be a venture capital fund that we know we've done the vetting and we've brought to the table and said, hey, look, this for a portion of your wealth, this will make sense for the venture capital bucket. It could be private equity, KKR, Blackstone, be it who it is, whoever we choose, right? Carlyle, the big names, the big access. We work with those guys every single day, those firms every single day. And it could be real estate, right? Real estate is one of the true creators of wealth, and certainly we can invest in funds, we can invest in individual deals. For instance, I've invested in some different self-storage and some different things in the local areas and up and down the East Coast. And these are things we want to talk about with our clients, right? We want to give you opportunities to participate, and equally so, I can't tell you how many clients have told us their previous advisors, they bring these ideas, they get shot down, they can't talk about them, and they can't invest in them, and they really discourage it. Well, it's the opposite. We believe we should be thinking about these things, that we should be considering them, public markets are not the only way to build wealth. And so that's a really important part of our asset allocation. Again, all of these things have to be appropriate for our clients, for their risk, for their liquidity, for where you are in life, and all of these things have to line up. But again, we don't want to shut the door on any style of wealth management. We really want to open the door and give our clients access to the things that we use personally, and we've seen really successful entrepreneurs use over the years. Let's go to our final slide. All right. Now, if we drill down to a little bit more on the tax side, that's the wealth side, that's building your wealth. There are specific tax strategies that I'm going to go over at a very high level. Please remember, we need to drill down to your tax situation. These are good things to talk about with your counsel, with your advisors. If you want to bring them up, that's great, but they do need to be specific to you. On the corporate tax side, one of the first things we'll look at is what's your current structure? Are you structured as an S corp compared to an LLC or partnership? Are you a C corporation? It's not on here, but there is something called a Section 1202, and if you've been a C corporation for 5 years and you sell, oftentimes you can exclude the first $10 million of your sales price from from federal capital gains. And again, that's a whole nother tax conversation. But your structure matters. Some of the features that we think about in terms of the structure, LLCs really are fantastic for profit flexibility and are very useful if there's more than 2 partners in an organization or in a firm, namely because you can distribute profit differently, right? It doesn't have to be based on the ownership percentage of that partnership or LLC. If you have an S corporation, the profits must be distributed evenly across all members. S corps, though, help mitigate what is called a 3.8% Medicare surtax. So you might have talked to your CPA and they said, hey, let's peg your salary at $130,000, $140,000, $200,000, and the rest take as distributions. The reason for that is because S corporation distributions avoid a 3.8% Medicare surtax, and on profitable companies, this can be a substantial amount of money. Now, there are ways in many member organizations to actually have a combination of both using something we call upper and lower tier tax structures. This can be helpful for DC-based companies with Virginia owners. Virginia does not play nice with DC with regards to recognizing S corporations and vice versa. But there are some ways around that. So if that does pertain to you, shoot me an email and we can hop on a call and chat through that. Home office deductions. This used to be on the IRS's dirty dozen list, kind of famously. A decade, maybe 15 years ago, taking home office deductions could cause an audit. Before COVID, this was on the way out. And COVID certainly has put the nail in the coffin to anything being wrong with taking a home office deduction. Now, the way that you take that home office deduction can be a multitude of ways. You can take it based on the number of rooms in your house. You can take it on a percentage of square footage, but there's a lot of different ways to skin this cat. And specific to you, it's really important that if you do own a company, you do have 1099 income, that we take a look at this, because you're absolutely using the resources you have at home, and we can take advantage of those deductions. Gross vehicle weight. Don't ask me the full genesis of this because I don't know. But vehicles that have gross vehicle weight over 6,000 pounds currently qualify for what is called accelerated depreciation in the year in which they are put in service. If you simply search gross vehicle weight over 6,000 pounds, there are lists available on the internet that will permit you to buy a car, to make a single payment in your company's name, and to actually depreciate the entire value of the car in that year, receiving a deduction. A couple nuances to that, but that is something to consider if you do want to put a vehicle in, whether it should be owned by a company. You got to have a reason to do so, but it is a particular strategy we've seen that creates some substantial tax savings. The ERC employer retention credit. This is unbelievable. We uncovered over $1 million in missed tax credits with a client engagement this past year, simply because the payroll service and the CPA were not paying attention. This was a COVID policy that helped compare revenue per quarter in 2019 and 2020 compared to 2021. And if you were a certain percentage down in 19, compared to where you are in 2021, you can, and this should be $7,000, please excuse me, a $7,000 per employee tax credit per quarter if the revenue had been reduced quarter over quarter. This is really important. If you take a look at 2019, you said, Joe, I'm at the same amount of revenue as I was in 2021. It's not the total revenue through the year, it's by quarter. So if in Q1 you were down by 30% compared to Q1 in 2021, if only because of how ARs were received, it's a simple cash flow issue, you may qualify for the $7,000 per employee retention credit. These amendments can be made through your payroll and should be in coordination with your tax counsel, but this is an area that we're looking at really closely with each one of our companies and seeing if there can't be some substantial savings. Lastly, and I'll wrap up here shortly, charitable foundations, donor advised funds, looking to reduce taxes through charitable donations, but doing so in strategic ways. These are areas that we want to consult on you to see if a family foundation, more specifically a donor advised fund structure, makes sense. It does give us opportunities to make donations throughout the year without needing to kind of have picked a final charity or final place to do so. Oftentimes it is a way to kind of give back and to create a legacy of giving in your family long after you're gone. And then lastly, it would be captive insurance companies. This is something that if there are risks in business, there are many risks in businesses that are not that won't be covered by standard insurance policy. There are many types of risks, and there is an opportunity to to own what's called a captive insurance company, which you actually would own as a business owner, and it can provide some tax benefits, provided that there are material risks that are covered. So those are just kind of a few tips for us on the tax side. Again, I really encourage you to take this list, talk to your CPAs and your advisors. We're also, of course, happy to have a conversation and talk a little bit more about engagements and what these look like. If you do have any questions, if anything I've said, spike something, feel free to give me a call, shoot me an email. You'll hear from Luis next week as well. And again, thank you so much for your time today.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe. This was very informative. And for all of the attendees who are on the line, the session today has been recorded, and they'll be posted later, I'll say within 24 hours. I think the next couple slides just have more of your about. I don't know if you want to run through these real quick. It's
okay. Yeah, these slides are available. One thing that we have a passion for is sharing a little bit about our story and sharing a little bit more about the work that we do. So our websites, our YouTube channel, have a lot of data, a lot of info about us and who we are. And we definitely encourage you to take a look.
Great. So what I'll do is run through these until we get to our final slides here. Okay, so just another shout out and thanks again to you, Joe and Louise, for participating in the series here that we're kicking off in 2022. If anyone has interest in putting on a webinar with us, you can shoot an email over to the hello@jenniferschaus.com. And again, the webinars can be either a 1, 2, or 3-part series. We promote it via our newsletter, which reaches 23,000 subscribers. It also gets promoted on LinkedIn. We host it on GoToWebinar, which is what we're using today. And then some of the YouTube statistics are here, which we've got close to 4,000 subscribers there and thousands of watch time hour and thousands of downloads on some of our top videos. Also, if you do have a webinar that you just want to upload to our YouTube channel, we do have pricing available for that as well. So thanks again, everybody, for participating. And that concludes our webinar today. Thank you.